Are you ready? You think you could tell us what to do? You think you could tell us what to wear? You think that you're better? Well, you better get ready. Bow to the masters. Break it down!
Hi, welcome to another episode of Straight Lions Talk Podcast, your Detroit Lions information center for everything happening Detroit Lions football. Sorry about last week, guys. I had a little family emergency. My grandfather had surgery, but I'm glad to say, did great, came through the surgery like a champ. Looks like he's going to be around for a long time to come, which is great news. So that's where we were last week. That's where we were unable to do a podcast last week. The week before, we talked about doing a podcast to preview the Detroit Lions draft. Now, we kind of did that last week, so we're not going to do that this week due to the fact that we missed last week. We kind of all know where we stand with the draft and what it entails, but we'll get into that in just a second. But as usual, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. It's just been an incredible year for us. We've accomplished a lot of things we didn't think we'd be able to accomplish. It's all because of NFL Draft Bible, so check those guys out. They do an incredible job for everything NFL draft and football, whether it's college, high school, pro, whatever it is. They cover all of it. Great information, in-depth information. Check them out. Couldn't be easier to find on any source of social media. They're on at NFLDraftBible.com or NFL Draft Bible on Facebook, NFL Draft Bible on Twitter, Vine, Instagram, wherever it is, that's where they are. And speaking of all those formats, that's where you can find us. You can find us specifically on Twitter at STR Lions Talk Podcast, or you can find us on Instagram, Vine, YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, a whole variety of formats for you guys to choose from, Spreaker.com. A lot of different ways you guys can get in touch with us. Leave us a comment, a rating. Always leave us a rating. You listen to the show, you like the show, please leave us a rating. We need those ratings. Those ratings give us the ability to be searched as a top podcast, and that only happens with you guys. And you guys have been great doing that, but continue doing that, please. That is what we need to happen for us to become the source of information for you, the fans, for anything happening Detroit Lions football. But like I said last week, we talked about doing a podcast this week of looking at the draft the Detroit Lions have. Well, last week we kind of covered it. We didn't get in depth and break down what we specifically like and dislike about the pick, but we kind of covered it in a vague way, and we'll cover it throughout the season. I think we're going to go about it that way and see if it's a little bit better than just traditional, I give that a B, I give that an A, that's a terrible pick, that's a great pick. We're going to go about it that way to see if that can maybe just make it a little bit different, a little bit better for you, the listener. Maybe we can do it just throughout the season, be like, hey, had some questions here with this guy, not to be hindsight guy or any of that. I think that's what we're going to do it this year. We're going to give it a try. And we're going to start today by going the top 5 Lions that need to perform this year for the team to have success. That's what we're going to cover today. And we're going to dig into the top 5 Lions that need to have breakout years, maybe step it up a little bit, and perform at a higher level for the Lions to reach that next step in the league, which for the Lions is just making the playoffs. This isn't making a Super Bowl run. This is just making the playoffs. So we have to start where it all starts. We have to start with Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford was someone we talked about last year. We thought would be a top 10 quarterback. We thought for the Lions to have optimum success, he'd have to be a top 5 quarterback to make a push in the playoffs and be very competitive throughout the season. The season started off extremely rough for Matthew Stafford, at least after the second half of the San Diego Charger game. Prior to that, the offense was clicking. First half of the San Diego Charger game, everything looked great. Everything thought we were going to the Super Bowl. We looked unstoppable for the first half of that game. After that, for whatever reason, whether teams were onto our signals or they knew exactly what we were going to do, like every team said, they know exactly every single play we are running before we run it. Whatever tells we were giving were evident and they were obvious to a lot of us out there that the Detroit Lions were stuck in a rut offensively until they made the change to Jim Bob Cooter later in the season, which benefited Matthew Stafford. And you saw his numbers. He was one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the second half of the season when they made the change to Jim Bob Cooter as offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. But Matthew Stafford needs to be in that top 10, top 5 range again this year. We need Matthew Stafford to become that consistent quarterback year in, year out as a Brady, Breeze, Aaron Rodgers type of stable quarterback where it's not such a roller coaster ride of highs and lows consistently year in, year out. And that's kind of been Matthew Stafford's MO since he's been in the league. He has not been consistent. That is what we've harped about on other podcasts, is Matthew Stafford needs to be more consistent. We talked about it last year prior to the season. Consistency would be the key for success with Matthew Stafford. Whether that's throwing for 200 yards and 1 touchdown, or whether that's throwing for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, he needs to be the quarterback the Lions need him to be per game, per week, per opponent. And whatever the situation dictates, whether it's a game where the offense dictates he needs to throw the ball a lot, then he needs to do that and take advantage of that. Whether it's handing off the ball and being a facilitator of the offense, then that also needs to be Matthew Stafford's. That Matthew Stafford needs to have that accountability with the offense to say, I'm in charge and I'm the leader. And that's what we're looking for with Matthew Stafford. This is the first year I think he truly is the leader of the offense. He doesn't portray extreme leadership qualities. He doesn't seem as someone that gravitates, like maybe players don't gravitate to him as they would to a Drew Brees, a Brett Favre, a Peyton Manning, a Tom Brady, someone like that. But Matthew Stafford maybe doesn't have those leadership qualities as much as those guys, but I think last year you saw him take steps in trying to be more of a vocal leader, a person that will lead on the field and show guys, okay, fine, you don't want to do it, then I'll just do it myself. And the kid is extremely tough for all the people out there that were saying he was a China doll and all the people out there that saying he wasn't tough and he was a doughboy. You guys all couldn't have been more wrong. Now, for the Lions to have optimum success this year, Matthew Stafford needs to stay healthy. But Matthew Stafford at age 28 in his 8th season this year, going into his 9th season this year, needs to be the productive leader of this team. Whether it's pumping up the defense, whether it's telling the offense, we will get a touchdown here, we need a drive, and being able to execute the offense in a way that's productive week in and week out for the Lions to have optimum success. So our first choice this year for the Detroit Lions, of the top 5 players that need to perform, is Matthew Stafford needs to perform at a high level for the Detroit Lions to have optimum success. The next player we believe needs to perform at a super high level is not so much one player in particular as it is the secondary for the Detroit Lions. The secondary for the Detroit Lions needs to play extremely well this year and be able to keep their man in front of them at all times. The secondary has always been a sore subject for all Lions fans. A lot of people want us to draft D. Milner. Thank God we didn't. A lot of people just wanted to draft Janoris Jenkins, which he's turned into a pretty decent player after a great rookie year and kind of fell off. Signed a huge contract with the Giants this last offseason. The secondary for the Lions has come around. Darius Slay, a pick people were so mad we took, a player that a lot of people didn't want us to take, a player, that actually tested better than D. Milner and has proven that thus far in his career to be the better player during the NFL draft when he was drafted. So, Darius Slay needs to step up. He doesn't need to step up to that Richard Sherman type of level. He needs to be more consistent how he played last year on the high moments and not have those lows he has at times and lose focus. He just needs to be more consistent week in, week out per opponent, no matter who the offensive player is, no matter what the offense does. He needs to be more consistent. The defense overall in the secondary needs to be more consistent. We have some new faces, guys like Alex Carter, who didn't play a down last year for the Detroit Lions. We have Ian Walls. We have Quandre Diggs, a player people are expecting a lot of out of this year, a player I don't believe will perform to the level people think he's going to. He was that 6th-round pick that everyone falls in love with. He had 3rd-round value all day long. He was chosen in the 6th round by the Detroit Lions. Great pick, panned out, played very well. But Quandre Diggs' skill set is not covering receivers. His skill set is playing in that small box and being able to perform extremely well in those small windows, whether it's cover the tight end, cover the wide receiver, whether it's the 1 receiver, 2 receiver, whether it's the slot receiver, whether it's the running back out of the backfield. Those are some of Quandre Diggs' positives. Some of his weaknesses are he can't cover consistently down for down on some of the more elusive receivers, the Julian Edelmans, guys like that have too much shake for him. He doesn't have a great speed. He has a decent burst coming out of his back pedal, but also needs to realize that he's a good player in situations. And I think that's something you're going to see with the Detroit Lions secondary and with Bob Quinn coming in and implementing some of his philosophies and some of his theories that he believes will win football games. Is the Detroit Lions are going to be more scheme diverse per opponent. We've talked about it 1,000 times, but I believe this is going to show up extremely well with the secondary. I believe the secondary is something you're going to look at and think, why are they playing zone? Why are they playing back this week? Why are they playing up? Everything's going to have a purpose. I believe the secondary is going to blitz more. And if you go back and look at the Patriots, besides the year they won the Super Bowl and they had Darrelle Revis and Brandon Browner, and they had Ty Law in the championship years and stuff like that, their secondary has never been, top-level guys. Asante Samuel, incredible talent, but was not drafted extremely high. And that's something you're going to see with the Detroit Lions, and that was something Martin Mayhew did very well, was select cornerbacks. If you really want to get down to it, he's selected a very good group of cornerbacks. He selected Alex Carter. We'll see. Nevin Lawson, a player we really like, a player I feel needs to take that next step in consistency, that next step in a player in the league for 3 years, a player that can be counted on down for down, that won't give up the big play consistently. He's a player that we really need to step up. But overall, the Detroit Lions as a whole and the secondary really need to step up. We have some question marks at the safety position. We drafted Miles Killebrew in the draft, 6'3", 230 pounds. Will he be able to perform to the level of a starting safety right away in the NFL? I do not believe so. I believe he is, again, a player that's going to be used situationally for the Detroit Lions. Used in special teams a lot, used in certain situations per opponent, and be put into the defense very slowly. They'll bring him along very slowly. Terrell Austin has done a phenomenal job as defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, but he's also done a great job with the secondary, a position he coached in Baltimore prior to coming to the Detroit Lions, and it shows. The Detroit Lions secondary, year in, year out, is pretty good. They had some rough patches last year where they weren't playing very well, and they kind of went back to basics, and things turned around. Now, signing guys like Raphael Bush, Tavon Wilson in the offseason to help out in that secondary is going to be huge. One's a Patriot guy, Tavon Wilson. One came from the Saints, Raphael Bush, but played in a similar system to the New England Patriots, that Rob Ryan system, which Rob Ryan coached with Bill Belichick at one time. That Bill Belichick system of defense, and Darren Walls, guys like that. So our second choice for Detroit Lions that need to step up, we have taken the secondary as a whole, and that unit needs to step up and perform very well due to the fact that we probably won't have a devastating pass rush this year. I know Ezekiel Ansel had a great year last year, but there's really no one opposite of him. Devin Taylor stepped up and played extremely well last year. Can he perform to that next level? Can he be consistent and be taking that next step as a NFL defensive end? Those are the question marks. I think the biggest question mark of this year is how will the defense perform? Can it be consistent week in, week out? Because that's where it all lays, is can the defense be consistent week in, week out in a division that may be the toughest in the NFL this next season. Our third player, we believe, that really needs to step up, a player that was drafted extremely high and has not lived up to the promise he showed in college. To me, a player I loved is Kyle Van Noy. Kyle Van Noy was a player I was so excited when we drafted. A player that I thought was going to change our defense in a way that would make us a top-level defense every year he was there. I thought he was a plug-and-play starter. I thought we stole him in the second round. We traded up to get him. I think it was the right move at the time. It was a position we needed. I just don't understand what the Lions were and are doing with him. I didn't think his skill set was a coverage linebacker in college, and I understand the importance of understanding how to cover. I just thought the way the Lions and Martin Mayhew and that regime, the vision they had for him was not what he was good at in college. It's like they did everything he was good at in college. They tried to make him do everything he was bad at in the pros. They gave him 95 the first year. Were they going to make him a defensive lineman, a defensive end? What were they going to do with him? They were kind of up in the air about it at one time. Then they were going to see, my vision for him was they were going to stand him up and let him rush the passer in certain situations. I thought they were going to utilize him in a variety of different ways and move him around throughout the defense and utilize his ability to cut runners off, because he's extremely good at pursuing or angle of pursuit. He's extremely good at that. He's extremely good at rushing the quarterback. He's extremely good at covering the running back out of the backfield. At least he was in college. And I just didn't understand what the Detroit Lions had for a vision with Kyle Van Noy. With that said, all the reports coming out, he's doing great. He's taken that next step. He's become a better student of the game. And some of the things that we don't know about as fans, some of the access we don't have yet to the Detroit Lions is, what was his attitude in there? Was he a gym rat? Was he there every day trying to learn the playbook, or couldn't he pick it up? Was the NFL defense is too complicated for him? What was the issue with Kyle Van Noy? Or was he just a player that wasn't as good as we all thought? And I just don't see it that way. I thought I saw a player on film that popped, a player that was electric, a player that made a difference for a poor BYU team that was a difference maker against top-level opponents, not just against the Rices, not just against the Louisiana Lafayette, against the top-level teams, Texas, Oklahoma, teams like that. You saw him play against those teams. You saw him do very well against those teams. I just don't think he was the right player for Martin Mayhew and Jim Caldwell and Terrell Austin. I think they looked at him a different way than what he was and thought he could do different things than what he could do. And I believe Bob Quinn sees him as a different player, and I hope they can bring out that immense talent in him, because Kyle Van Noy being a menace on defense and being a difference maker on defense, a player that we need to fill the right side of that defense at the linebacker position, taking over for Tahir Whitehead, taking over for Josh Bynes. We really need, in my opinion, the third player we need for the Detroit Lions to step up, for the Lions to have a very productive year, and for the defense to possibly take that next step and become a top 10 defense the way they were 2 years ago when they made the playoffs. I believe Kyle Van Noy is the player that needs to step up and take that next step for the Detroit Lions to have success in the 2016 NFL season. The fourth Detroit Lion we want to talk about that we believe needs to have a great year and improve on the playoff year 2 years ago is Jim Caldwell. We believe Jim Caldwell needs to have a very good year. Jim Caldwell needs to show us the fans, everything that we hear about Jim Caldwell, everything that we heard about Jim Caldwell when we made our playoff run. We need all those things to come together this year, the way they did for the Indianapolis Colts when they went 15-1, went to the Super Bowl under Jim Caldwell. We need those things to be more consistent week in, week out. I believe he is going to be essential, Jim Caldwell that is, in not managing the game the way he did last year. Now, the Detroit Lions have hired Randy Edsall to kind of be a quote-unquote assistant to Jim Caldwell, his eye in the sky, and help him break down teams week by week, show their tendencies, show their weaknesses, show their strengths. Randy Edsall is going to have all that information for Jim Caldwell, and he is there also to help with some of the game time decisions in certain situations, give him probabilities on certain downs, certain plays, certain yardages, things of that nature. So is that going to help Jim Caldwell this year in some of the decision making? Because last year it was piss poor. He was stubborn. He didn't want to get out of his own way. When things weren't working, he was saying it wasn't that. It was the system was fine. It was the players need to execute. Why? On some manner, I agree with that. On others, I do not agree with that, because when every player in the league is telling you they know every single play we are running, and he says, well, we know every play they're running, and we can't stop them, and they are stifling us on both sides of the ball, there's a problem. And he was slow to recognize Joe Lombardi. He was too loyal. And the only reason I believe he ended up firing Joe Lombardi is because he was forced to fire Joe Lombardi by Martin Mayhew before they threw him out the door. And with Bob Quinn keeping Jim Caldwell this season, when everyone thought Bob Quinn would bring in his own guy, I don't know how long his leash is, but I don't think it's extremely short either. Because I don't think Bob Quinn would have went into this as a 1 year or a 1 year project with Jim Caldwell and let's see how it goes, because he doesn't strike me as that type of guy. I don't believe Martha Ford forced him to keep Jim Caldwell. At least I hope not, because then he's just basically a puppet, and I don't believe that's what happened. I just believe that he wanted to keep... I believe Bob Quinn saw that there was so much work to do in the front office, he didn't want to have to flip the coaching staff over at the same time while he was trying to reinvent the front office and put new life into a front office that had a bunch of good old boys in there that had been around for 25 years and weren't living up to the expectations of an NFL front office. And keeping Jim Caldwell for the Detroit Lions was the right move, in my opinion, after I thought about it. Initially, I didn't like it, but after we thought about it and understood what Bob Quinn was trying to do, it made more sense. So for us, the fourth player, or fourth Lion, that needs to step up this offseason is Jim Caldwell. Jim Caldwell needs to have a very good year. Jim Caldwell needs to be more consistent. Jim Caldwell needs to not make stupid play calls. Jim Caldwell needs to not make dumb timeout or call dumb timeouts. He needs to not make stupid Hail Mary decisions at ends of games. And, there's a couple times last year they won games in spite of Jim Caldwell. He didn't have a great year coaching, guys. And maybe hiring Randy Edsall to help him along, having more assistant coaches on the staff than he did the year before will help. The depth of the team overall could help. We just need him to live up to what everyone says about him. Everyone says he's smart, and there's no doubt he is a very highly intelligent man. He has a lot of qualities that players like. He's a player's type of coach. Every player can't say enough about him. They always say he's one of their favorite coaches. I'm not questioning the man as a man. I'm just questioning him as a coach. Does he have the ability to lead these men into the lion's den, so to speak, week in, week out against some of the most aggressive and top coaches and top teams in the league and be able to outwit them? Like the historical matchups between Bill Parcells and Bill Walsh, and Bill Parcells and Joe Gibbs, and Bill Parcells and Jimmy Johnson, and those type of coaches. Can he be in that arena with those guys? Is he going to be able to be that coach? I personally don't think so. He doesn't seem to have that temperament that all of those coaches had, that killer instinct. I will step on your cold, dead body to win this game. I don't think he has that. I don't know if he is I don't know if he can lead when the metals meet in the meat. I don't know if he can do that. I don't know when things get chaotic, if things slow down for him, if they speed up. And last year it seemed like things sped up for him when things got chaotic. He didn't seem like he had control of the situation. It seemed like the situation had control of him. But it is what it is now, and we need Jim Caldwell to step up. So our number 4 line that needs to step up is Jim Caldwell. And our 5th line, we believe, that needs to step up and have a phenomenal year this year is Golden Tate. Golden Tate needs to play extremely well. And it's not because Calvin Johnson's gone, which is going to sound weird. We just need Golden Tate to be Golden Tate. We don't need Golden Tate to be any more than what Golden Tate has been the last 2 years. We need him to play better than he did the first half of last season, that's for sure. But we need him to be the leader on the field. We need that wide receiver core to take that next step and be productive, to get open on third down, to get open in those crucial situations, to win at the line of scrimmage, to be able to recognize the difference between man and zone, to understand what defenses are trying to do to them. That's where Golden Tate needs to step up and become a leader for the wide receiving core. You know, we have Marvin Jones that came in. We have T.J. Jones. My favorite player, the player I absolutely love, Andre Roberts, a player that we love, just adore, and I hope he stays healthy. I hope he's is everything I think he can be in the Detroit Lions offense. Can that group of players become effective for the Detroit Lions? Is it going to be a consistent wide receiver core? Can Golden Tate take over as that number 1 receiver? Now, we saw some times when Calvin Johnson was down over the last 3 years, and, you know, Calvin Johnson wasn't there, and the offense actually was better. And I have said that for a while. I believe the offense will be better without Calvin Johnson. That's going to sound dumb, and I'm not saying that Calvin Johnson wasn't a tremendous football player, an unstoppable force at times, like that Philadelphia game on Thanksgiving last year. Calvin Johnson was unbelievably unstoppable. You could not stop him. No matter what they were trying to do, he was having one of those games where you could not stop him. No matter what you did, what he did was better. And no matter what it was, he fell on the ground, he still caught the ball. No matter what it was. And we need Golden Tate to be that kind of receiver week in, week out. Not 185 yards and 3 touchdowns like Calvin Johnson did on Thanksgiving. We need it to be more 90 yards every week and maybe a touchdown. You know, be an effective blocker on running downs. Get after players for not blocking, for not holding their block, and make sure he holds all the players accountable on offense for not running the right route, not running the route hard. That's what we need. We need more of a vocal leader in a positive way, not a I need the ball player. We need a player that wants to win at all costs and can show those players on offense, this is how you do it. This is how you're not selfish and win. This is how you block when it's a run play and block hard, something he is extremely good at. And Marvin Jones is extremely good. Andre Roberts is good at it. You know, can he mold a guy like a Jay Lee, a guy we got from Baylor, into a dominant player? Can he show him what it is to be an NFL wide receiver? I believe Golden Tate needs to have a very good year. Golden Tate cannot be falling off. Golden Tate needs to hold that level. I think we need 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns out of Golden Tate. We need him to be something that the defense focuses on so we can allow T.J. Jones, Andre Roberts, Marvin Jones to break loose and have a very successful year. Now, that comes back to Matthew Stafford. Can Matthew Stafford recognize the difference between man and zone? Can Matthew Stafford step up and be that next level quarterback? You know, that's what we talked about. Can the Detroit Lions win week in, week out at the wide receiver position? Because that's the league now, guys. You know, you have a guy like Theo Riddick coming out of the backfield. You know, we have Brandon Pettigrew, who's just basically a blocking tight end at this point in his career. Guy I don't expect to make the team coming out of camp. We have Jeremy Curley, a guy that can win at the line of scrimmage in a multitude of different ways. You know, Stephen Ridley could be poised for a pretty big year this year. Stephen Ridley could have a very extensive bulk of the carries this year. I think he's going to take some carries away from Theo Riddick. I don't think Theo Riddick's going to be used that much in the backfield. That's what all the reports are saying. And a player I kind of like is that Dwayne Washington we drafted out of Washington. He's a player I like a lot. I think he's a player that fits what we were trying to do as an offense. He's a bruising back. I don't think he makes the team this year. I think he stays in the practice squad and maybe makes the team next year unless he has an exceptional training camp and preseason. But I just don't see it. Corey Fuller will not make the team this year, so we don't have to worry about that. Andre Caldwell, I don't believe will make the team this year. So Golden Tate needs to step up and become that player. 27 years old, 4th year with the Lions. Can he be that next level player? Can he be consistent for the Detroit Lions? I guess we'll wait and see. The season's upon us, guys. It's almost here. The 23rd rookies report to camp. That is next Sunday, or this Sunday coming up. So it all starts. The rookies come in. A week after that, the veterans come in, and we're off and running. Training camp's here. I think we will be going to training camp. I have to call Rick at NFL Draft Bible to confirm our media passes to get into training camp. I'm super excited about it. I've always wanted to do this. It's one of my bucket list things. And I couldn't be happier to be partnering with NFL Draft Bible. Incredible guy, incredible site. Just check them out. So next week we're going to be doing duds and studs for the 2016 season for the Detroit Lions like we did last year. Last year our dud and stud was TJ Jones. And our dud was, I'm drawing a blank. I think it was Corey Fuller. So those were our 2 duds and studs last year, I believe. And this year we're going to have 2 players, 2 studs and 2 duds that we think are going to be players that we believe will take that next steps. And we're not talking about a guy like Theo Riddick. We're not talking a guy like Marvin Jones. We're talking about a guy like, let's say, a Zach Zenner to break out. And no, it won't be Zach Zenner as one of the studs. He might be a dud, but he won't be a stud. Those are the players that we are looking at as players like last year. We thought TJ Jones was going to break out, and in some small way he did. He's a person now that you hear in media reports that he's having a great offseason. He's fully healthy for the first time since becoming a Lion. But last year you could see the big playability. You could see he was close to breaking punt returns, kick returns. Every time he caught the ball, he seemed like he was just about ready to break it. And if he's fully healthy, can he break off those plays that he's so elusive, he's so aware on the field, he understands where he's at on the field. So it won't be TJ Jones this year, but we're still huge TJ Jones fans here. So that's our show today. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next week.